Tafshin Chafei, Vayikach min Bido, Mincha Gomer, and Yaakov Avinu took from anything and everything that, or took from the things that came to his hand, he took a gift. It's explained at length in the printed Mamorim of Chassidus, and also one of the manuscripts for him, in other words, that came out recently in the 60s when this Maimon was said, also in the 70s, was a lot of Sforim trickling out from the iron block, things that were coming out from Poland and other places. So there it says, all the karbonos and all the davenings are called, as we know, davening is in the place of karbonos, are called mincha. The word mincha can have a broad interpretation and can have a narrow interpretation. The narrow interpretation, the karbonos, there's certain karbonos are called a carbon mincha. Usually a flower offering is a mincha. When you're talking about the narrow interpretation of davening, mincha, it goes on the afternoon tefillah. But in the broad sense, all the karbanos are called mincha and all the tefillos are called mincha. How come? The reason for this is the avodas are karbanos, avodas are tefillah. Both the avodah are bringing a sacrifice on the mizbeach, whatever type of sacrifice, and also all types of davening, regardless of the time of day. The avodah molmata l'mayla is the avodah from below to above. Kidu a miles avodah tefillah the karbonos al avodah the Torah mitzvahs, like it's known the advantage of the avodah of davening and karbonos over the avodah of Torah mitzvahs. The idea of Torah is drawing down from above to below. Torah is Hashem's wisdom, similar to what we spoke about also in the previous mimer. The peace doesn't engage. And the Torah study of a person, really, it's in a way that it's a responsive reading. My tongue is only responding to what you are saying. He's only responding and repeating the words of Hashem, responsive, like a responsive tefillah, where the Chazan says something and you say the same thing afterwards. The same thing. Torah is considered oina, that you're really repeating what the Eibishter said. That is the idea of Torah. Now he's going to show how that's also about tefillah as well. That we have the same idea. I'm sorry, not tefillah, excuse me. That's the idea also of mitzvahs. The even mitzvahs, that the main thing is that the person should fulfill them. The avodah concerning mitzvahs is to fulfill something that Hashem commanded. If a person will do on their own something that Hashem did not command, and by doing so, he is considering it to fulfill a mitzvah of Hashem. So then transgresses the prohibition of not to add to mitzvahs. Of course, there are things that we do on our own, but we have to be careful not to include it and say, this that I'm doing on my own is a mitzvah from Hashem. But if a person says that's a mitzvah, so then he's over on Baal Tosef. So the whole idea of Torah mitzvahs is all what Hashem is the initiator, originator. As opposed to davening. And in a similar vein, karbonis is what's coming out of the person. It's the request and the prayer of a person. The person is davening for things that he is lacking. Though tefillah is also a mitzvah. So therefore, if it's a mitzvah, so it's like all other mitzvahs that are originating by Hashem. But what is the content of the mitzvah? The idea of this mitzvah is that a person should request for his things that he needs. Since the tefillah is avoided from below to above, it hasn't the advantage that the actions of your hand you will desire. Meaning that Hashem desires what we do. So davening, and in similar vein, karbonis, that's also considered coming from us, is something that Hashem desires in a way even more than Torah or mitzvahs, because this is completely our doing. Therefore, the advantage of tefillah is because it's originating from us, it reaches higher than those things that the hamshacha is, from above to below, like Torah and mitzvahs. That's why all tefillahs, like we said, in a broad sense, is called mincha. Mincha gives a very interesting combination of letters. Rosh Tevis Man Ches Hey. What's the significance of these letters? Upirushay Man is a Rosh Tevis Mayim Nukvim. Halos Mayim Nukvim O Matal Amayla. The elevation of the feminine waters from below to above, meaning Sirus Sata, an awakening inspiration from down here below. Ches means Shemagas, when Mazel Hashmini, it reaches the 8th Mazel. In the Yud Gimel Midas Arachim, each one is called and corresponds to, or is the idea of the Yud Gimel Mazolis above, and the 8th one of them is the idea of V'noitzer, and that is higher than the Seder Shtalshus is brought down in Chassidus, and this probably also has to do with the number 8 being higher than Seder Shtalshus. So that's how high the idea of davening reaches, higher than the avodah of Torah mitzvahs. And hey, from that very high level, it comes down all the way into the lower hay. The lower hay of Yudke Vavke, we know, is Spheres HaMalchus, goes on the level of Malchus. The upper hay goes on Bina, the lower hay goes on Malchus. The root and source of all the created beings. So it's going all the way from Ches, from the Noitzer Hashmini, all the way down to Heitato Malchus, which is the root of Nevroim, and therefore, Shal Yoda, through Malchus, it's Yom Shwebya, it comes down to Bri, Yitzira, Asiya, Adla, Asiya, Gashmi, still the physical world of Asiya. Lias, Reife, Choylem, Mavarach Hashanah, B'chol, so he should heal the sick and bless the years. In other words, only tefillah is directly involved with changing the physical world down here. Why is it changing the physical world down here? Because only tefillah reaches all the way that high to the Mazel Hashmini of V'noitz. Second page in the Maimer, Ois Beis, page 325. Though we said before that in the broad sense, all davenings are called mincha. The fact that the afternoon tefillah is called mincha, moving it's understood. The main idea of what mincha is about, which we said before, that mincha means a gift coming down, being raised up from below to above. And that results in drawing down a light that is higher than Seder Shtalshus, which comes down very much below. That is the characteristic of the idea of mincha, is primarily is primarily in the davening of mincha. That's why Chazal said, a person should always take care that fills mincha. Eliyahu was not answered when he was having the contest and the debate with the Nevi Habal, and he challenged them to see whose sacrifices would be accepted, and as much as they had planned to be able to have a fake fire come up and eat up the sacrifices, that wasn't to be. And then Eliyahu was davening for Hashem to send down a fire from heaven to take up his sacrifices to Hashem. And only by mincha time was his tefillah finally answered, and Hashem sent it down. So what's the significance? That's what happened by him. But what's my significance? Why for me is mincha such an important tefillah? The explanation this is the Shachris at the beginning of the day, before the person got busy and involved in matters of this world. The Tfilas and Ma'ariv is the conclusion of the day. After he already left behind things of this world. So therefore, in both cases, it's not as challenging to approach Hashem, address Hashem, come and speak to Hashem. Mincha comes in the middle of the passionate involvement in matters of this world. As we know, it's, in the winter times, Mincha is about 4 o'clock. You got to stop. Whatever you're doing, you got to daven Mincha. Well, Tirdes is supposed to say. There's a misplacement of the dollar ratio here. Without, regardless of all the business and all the involvements, he tears himself away from all of them. And he davens mincha. Therefore, this avodah is the main idea of the elevation of the Mayim Nukvin, the main thing that's coming from me. How does it show that it comes from me? Because I'm tearing myself away from everything else. Second paragraph on the page. To agree, there's a this is also the reason that mincha, there's opinions until it's actually brought down the halacha, that it's not like we said before, that tefillas are just the kineg karbonis tiknum, but even though usually we say the shacharis tefillah is the tamid shel shachar, the first carbon to open up the whole base of Mikdash, the tamid. The mincha is the afternoon tamid that close all the karbonis. But rather el kineg toidas, that the mincha is actually corresponding to the incense offering that was brought in the base of Mikdash. We have an asmachta from a pasuk that says tikun filasi ktoides lefanecha, that my tefillah should be prepared like a ktoides before you, like an incense offering before you. Masas kapai minchas arav, the raising of my palms. The raising of my palms is an expression of davening. A person raises their palms to heaven. The mincha of the evening. So we see that the pasuk is talking about which tefillah is a ktoides for Hashem. The raising of my palms, the davening at mincha time. So mincha has an additional or deeper thing that's not just like a carbon, but it's also and even primarily corresponding to the Ketores. What is this special? What's the specialness of that? The idea behind this is the difference in karbonis and Ketores is in many things. And amongst them, all karbonis come only from kosher things that are refined through the karbonis process. So we take a kosher animal, or a kosher flour, a kosher wine, kosher fowl, and we put it on the mizbeach and we elevate them. But you can't use chas v'sholom non-kosher things. Mashenkin b'toris hayagam dvarim tmeim, as opposed to the Ketores also had non-kosher things, like the Rebbe says in the footnote. There was this blood that was from a non-kosher animal. That was the moir part of the karbonis, the moir incense of the Ketores. I'm sorry. That shows that even something that comes from Gimel Kubsat Meis, that usually is not susceptible to be nisbarer, over here becomes nisbarer. For this reason, the Ketores reaches an even higher place than the karbonis kanal shabez and yom tlum zabezel, like we said before, that both components are dependent one in another. That the higher, because, like we said before, because mincha reaches all the way to mazel v'noitzer, mazel hashmini ches, that's why it comes down all the way to the hey tata, because it comes down, because it's so high, it can come down so low. It can deal with such a low level. So it goes on further, and therefore, top of the third page, karbonis is called eating. What's the significance of eating? I would say the carbon is a bread for my fire. The Ketores is only called scent, because karbonis, as we'll soon learn, is also called scent, but it's also called eating. What's the significance? Such a reach, we know that scent is higher than eating. It reaches the soul. That's why when a person is unconscious, we use smelling salts to wake them up. The same thing we say by Avdollah. We smell psamim because the neshama is sad for the leaving of the neshama yeseda matzah Shabbos. So therefore, it's about giving something that the soul has a benefit from. So too, it's above the level of eating of karbanis does not reach as high and as deep as the scent of the ktoidus reaches. That's just like by us. How high the scent reaches is much more than how our eating accomplishes. The advantage of scent over eating is also understood from the fact that eating is done with the mouth. The mouth is called the gate for the external level of the intellect. In a simple sense, the mouth is something that one speaks words of intellect. Speech can only reveal something that's external. Something that's really deep cannot be expressed through speech. So therefore, the mouth is only a gateway for the external part of the intellect. On the other hand, scent is in the nostrils, in the nose. It's the gateway for the inner part of the brain in a simple sense, because physically, I believe, because the nostrils can reach all the way into the brain. So now the Rebbe says, well, why is Ketores so special? Reach, Karbonis also has the idea of Reach. It also says the scent that is pleasing to me, the Kibush Karbonis Bechlolos in Yom Walos Man. Since Karbonis, like we said, the general idea is also an elevation from below to above. Mincha, they're called a mincha. Therefore, they're an idea of ascent. So therefore, karbonis are also this idea of ascent. Still, in scent itself, there are different levels. In scent itself, there's many levels. Reach to karbonis, there's the scent of karbonis. Then there's Reach the Ktoidus, the Chol HaShana Shebehechel. Then there's the scent of the Ktoidus of the entire year that's in the Hechel. That's connected with the right nostril in the nose. And then there's the scent of the Ktoidus Yom Kippurim. That was brought into the Holy of Holies that's connected with the left nostril. It's in every single day's Karbanas. There was the golden Mizbeach that was set inside the Heichel, the Kodesh, right before the Kodesh HaKadoshim, where the Menorah was, where the Shulchan was. That's where the Ketores was brought. On Yom Kippur, it was a totally different type of Ketores. The Ketores was brought in by the Kohen Gadol all the way into the inside of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which shows that the Ketores is of a deeper level on Yom Kippur than the rest of the year. And that's the difference between the left nostril and the right nostril. Then the Zohar, Kabbalitz brought down. The right nostril has to do with the level of Chayin, which is the level of Chaya, and the left nostril has to do with Chayin Dichaya, the level of Yechida. And that's also the idea of Tshuva, he says in the footnote over there as well. So that's why we see different levels in the idea of the reach that there is to be found. So he continues in Nois Gimel. That's what it says, specifically the term that he gave a mincha to Esav, his brother. Could he use other expressions? Why specifically mincha? Or he doesn't even have to say that whole introduction. He took the animals and he sent it to him. That's it. What does he have to explain about mincha? The idea of the mincha that Yaakov said to Esav in Yon halos man you, it's the idea of halos man all the way to the world of Toyu, which we know that's the Esav coming to Sharshay, to the level of Esav. We sent the mincha to Esav, not the Esav down here, but the Torah speaks in the highest levels. But the Esav, the way he's in his root, the way he's in the world of Toyu. Therefore, this mincha was also non-kosher animals. The loikim and karbanos, the tikkun shayim behebes teres dafkin, not like karbanos that have to do with the world of tikkun, that you make only kosher animals. But since you were dealing with the world of Toyu is the shoydish of Shalshak Meir, so you brought from its own linyanim also non-kosher animals. Therefore, it's also called mincha, because it's like the advantage of mincha over shachris and ma'ariv, and that reaches the highest, most level, therefore comes down to the lowest. To that also reaches with the deepest, lowest levels. Perhaps we could also connect it, the fact that mincha is done in the middle of the tumult of the day, that's also like dealing with the lowest levels as well. Another idea behind this is, by prefacing what's known, the fact that we say Esav, which corresponds to the world of Tayu, is called the firstborn, is only externally. But internally, Yaakov is really the firstborn. Like Rashi says in the Chumash, that it's like a tube that's closed at one end. That if you put in two balls in the tube, and so the one you put in first, that will come out last. The same thing, Yaakov, who was actually born last, and he wasn't firstborn in this world, was because he began as a firstborn in the higher world. So the same thing, Tayu is as well that way. That even though Tayu is higher than Tikkun, but the true Shayrish of Yaakov and the true Shayrish of Tikkun is even higher than Tayu. Our last page, we can explain the exact expression in Torah. So the Alter Rebbe says, Lefanav Mamash. That Lefanav, why does say Yaakov sent Malachim before him? The simple meaning is he sent Malachim ahead of him. They were going to meet up with Esav, but before Yaakov actually meets up with Esav, he sent the Malachim before him, the messengers before him, ahead of him. The Alter Rebbe says, Mamish before him, meaning higher than him. He sent him to the level of Esav, he sent him to a level that's higher than him in levels. The early kings of Tayu, that's why it's called Lefanav, it's higher than him. Taking the words of the Alter Rebbe at face value, it seems to me that the Lefanav shows on a quality thing. Pashtus HaKavanah B'Lashon Morazak Lefanav Mamish Yilmal Yusuf, the simple intention of the Alter Rebbe that before him, Mamish, by adding the word Mamish, is an advantage. That Yaakov did not send the Malachim to a level that's equal to him in level, to a level that's higher than him, which shows it's a very high idiot. The Bezritcher Maggid explains that when Rashi says that Yaakov sent Malachim, what does it mean, Malachim? It's literally Malachim, not just messengers, but angels. So the Bezritcher Maggid explains that he sent them the mamish of the Malachim, the most substantial, the most tangible part of Malachim Yaakov sent to Esav, but the spiritual part of Malachim he retained by him. Just like in that explanation of the Bezritcher Maggid, that the mamish is out to say what was wrong by Esav, not that it was higher than him, not that it was a positive thing, but Esav can only handle something that is a mamash. He couldn't handle the ruchnius. Lefon of mamish u'legreis. So it's also understood what Alter Rebbe says. Lefon of mamish, just like malachim mamish is a negative, the same thing. Lefon of mamish is a negative, as he's about to explain. V'haidu, this concerning Esav, it's a negative. V'haidu. Excuse me. Esav Tayu, of the fact that Esav, which is the level of Tayu, is before him, meaning is that the fact that he's higher than Yaakov is only in the substance, it's only in the external part. But in the internal part, Yaakov is even higher. And through the fact that Yaakov, the master of the world of Tikkun, he refines the sparks of Tayu that fell down through the breaking of the vessels. He's drawing down not just from the level of Tayu that preceded Tikkun, but he draws down even from that level of Tikkun that's even higher than the world of Tayu. Because he affects such a high level, he draws down from such a high level, like we said before, where you draw down from the highest most level, it influences the lowest. Through that, he influenced that Esav ran towards him and he embraced him and he kissed him. Even now, the way Esav was before being refined, as we know, Yaakov Avinu was assuming that Esav was already refined, and that's why he told him, I already refined love, and now you also should be refined. But he wasn't yet ready to be refined. The matzah, it was such a bad situation. That's halacha that's known that Esav hates Yaakov, despite him being in that state. This battle, Esav was nullified to Yaakov, and he kissed him with his entire heart.